Hello people, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we talk about top 10 completely different views on the Great Fire of Rome. Finding the truth in our history is like trying to solve a crime after arriving at the scene 2000 years too late. We analyze the evidence left behind, we listen to the witnesses, and we make our best guess, but we rarely know for sure what really happened. There are few better examples of just how murky the truth can get than the Great Fire of Rome. We have a handful of stories and a few half-melted coins still buried in the ashes of old Rome, and we have to pick through them to find the truth. It's difficult to know who started the Great Fire of Rome and what fallout ensued. Every group had an interest in this story, and every version of it comes with a political agenda attached. There are a lot of different versions of the story, and no one knows for sure who was telling the truth. Number 1 is the truth is unknowable. The Jewish historian Flavius Josephus wrote a short history of Nero, but he didn't even touch on the Great Fire of Rome. I omit any further discourse about these affairs, Josephus wrote. The life of Nero, he felt, was too murky to be worth stepping into. There have been a great many who have composed the history of Nero, he wrote, some of which have departed from the truth of facts out of favor, as having received benefits from him, while others, out of hatred to him, and the great ill will which they bear him, have so impudently raved against him with their lies. Number 2 is Christians were never persecuted by Nero. Some modern historians, though, don't believe that any of that really happened. 1. Gordon Stein thinks that Tacitus didn't actually write the part about Christians being used as scapegoats. He believes it was added by later Christian writers. The term Christian was not in common use in the 1st century, Stein claims. The word choice in this passage, Stein believes, is out of character for both Tacitus and the time he was alive. Number 3 is Nero blamed it on the Christians. When the fire was over, Tacitus claims, Nero needed a scapegoat. Everyone was blaming the fire on him, and to deflect it, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. This, Tacitus says, was the beginning of the persecution of Christianity. An arrest was first made of all who pleaded guilty, he says. Mockery of every sort was added to their deaths. Number 4 is Nero's relief party just started more fires. Cassius Di O doesn't agree that Nero was so helpful. Nero sent out relief parties, he says, but they didn't help anybody. They just made the fire worse. Many houses were set on fire by the same men who came to lend assistance, Di O claims. Nero's men, he claims, ran through the town, setting buildings on fire. The soldiers, including the night watch, having an eye to plunder, instead of putting out fires, kindled new ones. Number 5 is Nero was out of town and sent a relief party. According to Tacitus, however, Nero couldn't have played the lyre. He wasn't even in Rome when the fire happened. He was at Antium, Tacitus claims, and rushed to Rome as soon as he heard. By the time he'd made it, though, his palace, the place where Di O claims he played the lyre, had already been destroyed. Afterward, Nero set up a relief effort. To relieve the people, driven out homeless as they were, he threw open to them the Campus Martius and the public buildings of Agrippa, and even his own gardens, and raised temporary structures to receive the destitute multitude. Number 6 is Nero played the lyre while Rome burned. One of the most popular stories about the fire is that while Rome burned, Nero simply played his lyre and sang. Cassius Di O gives the most detailed version of the story. While the city burned, he says, Nero ascended to the roof of the palace, from which there was the best general view of the greater part of the conflagration, and assuming the lyre player's garb, he sang the capture of Troy, as he styled the song himself, though to the enemies of the spectators it was the capture of Rome. Suetonius backs him up, although he changes a few little details. He puts Nero on a tower on a different hill, and he has him singing the sack of Ilium instead. Number 7 is it was a controlled fire meant to build a new city. Archaeologist Andrea Carandini writes off every attempt to take the blame off Nero as historical revisionism. He says, this rehabilitation, this process of a small group of historians trying to transform aristocrats into gentlemen seems quite stupid to me. Number 8 is Christian extremists started the fire. When the fire was over, Emperor Nero blamed the Christians. Most people believe that he was just using them as a scapegoat, but one historian, Gerhard Body, thinks Nero might have been telling the truth. Before the fire, Body claims, Christians were passing around pamphlets promising that Rome would be reduced to ashes. That is the constant theme, Rome must burn, Body says. This was the long-desired objective of all people who felt subjugated by Rome. Number 9 is it was an accident. It seems unlikely that Nero would have started the Great Fire, says historian Eric Varner. After all, it destroyed his palace. The Roman historian Tacitus seems to have agreed. He claims that the fire started in a shop. It had its beginning in that part of the circus which adjoins the Palatine and Saelian hills, where, amid the shops containing inflammable wares, the conflagration both broke out and instantly became so fierce and so rapid from the wind that it seized in its grasp the entire length of the circus. From there, the fire got worse, spread on by a poorly designed city. Number 10 is Nero started the fire. According to Roman historian Cassius Di O, Nero had always wanted to see Rome burn. He claimed that Nero would say that a king who sees his country and throne destroyed together would be wonderfully fortunate. He secretly sent out men who pretended to be drunk, Dio says, and caused them at first to set fire to one or two or even several buildings. The fire spread faster than anyone could deal with, and the people broke into a panic. Here men, while assisting their neighbors, would learn that their own premises were afire, then others, before reached them that their own houses had caught fire, would be told that they were destroyed.